In today's Black Clover video, we talk about Yami's new devil power. We show you why Yami's dark magic has never been able to reach its true potential in his human body, and why that is about to change. Also, we talk about whether the magic grey mansion that Yami now possesses in his body is actually dark magic, or if it's a completely new magic ability from the underworld. This will then open up many new possibilities. Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! One of the most hyped things that will happen in the next Black Clover chapters is the revelation of what purpose, or rather what impact, Yami's new devil body will have. There will definitely be severe consequences for that. Whether those consequences are negative or positive is unknown at the moment. One of the most frequently asked questions in our review was whether Yami will become evil. We will discuss that in the first half of this video because it's very important, as you will find out why this might actually be the case. And then we will talk about what exact magic changes might occur with Yami. At first I thought, both theoretically possible because it depends on whether it happened naturally through the ritual itself, or if a devil had his hands in it and is now trying to use Yami. But the more I thought about it, the more complex this question became. In general, we can divide the possibilities into two main groups. Either Yami will always have control over his mind and body, or Yami will lose control and either become evil for some reason, as we saw with Licht when he turned into a demon god with free will but no intelligent thinking. He basically lost his mind and there was nothing human left. I know he's an elf, you know what I mean. The same happens for example with humans when they lose the devil binding ritual and then turn into a grotesque monster. Or Yami becomes a mere puppet, brainwashed, as was the case with Laura Peshika, who was transformed into a devil and then controlled by Vanica. Or as with Patri, who was transformed into a dark elf and then controlled by Zagret. As you can see, it is obvious that such demonic transformations are usually often accompanied by the fact that devils are somehow involved, and the persons concerned can lose their minds and thus be controlled by a devil. But in Yami's case, demonic changes have already taken place on his body, and yet he is still in control and does not seem to be evil either. This could be a very good sign, because if Yami is in control, he could use the new devil power for mankind to save the world and defeat all the devils. However, it could also be a bad sign, depending on whether his new body could affect Yami's true personality in any way, because due to the fact that he has control over his own body, and due to the fact that we have absolutely no idea how a possible devil heart affects a person, we can at least assume the possibility that it could have a negative influence on Yami's personality, which in turn would make Yami literally evil, even if it was due to a negative influence. I have two very good examples of this. The first example is based on mere speculation but relatively plausible, but the second example is confirmed. So the first example is about the Witch Queen. We know that for some reason after Vanessa's cat touched her forehead, she suddenly completely changed her personality from the evil witch queen to a rather warm-hearted person who is even willing to help others outside the witch forest. She healed everyone, gave medicine to the Diamond Kingdom for their king, and also for Kahono and Kyato. She revealed information about the elves and Asta swords, and even allowed Vanessa to come and go whenever she wants, even though it's forbidden. And as I said, this literally happened from one moment to the next. The cat touched her forehead and then we can literally see in the face of the Witch Queen that she suddenly became a completely different person. But the Witch Queen wasn't always so evil. We saw flashbacks of Vanessa at a young age when she wasn't locked up, and the Witch Queen looked very happy and friendly. She was even smiling and her clothes were much more colorful. But then something happened and she started wearing dark clothes with dark feathers, stopped smiling, locked Vanessa up, prohibited everyone to leave the forest, and so on and so forth. You know the whole story. One possible idea is that the Witch Queen used a little bit of the power of her magic stone from time to time. And as we know, magic stones are connected to the underworld. And over time, the use of the magic stones here and there had a negative impact on her personality, which was eventually nullified by Vanessa's cut. And now for the second example, we literally saw how the reincarnation spell caused many elves to be more evil than their hatred for humans actually was. This was confirmed in the manga. We even saw how the elves were out for revenge, but when they were freed, they literally smiled. They had absolutely no reason to take revenge on all the humans who didn't even have anything to do with the elf massacre 500 years ago. We later learned that the elves are indeed a very kind-hearted race, but that was absolutely not the case when they were reincarnated and tried to destroy all of humanity. Of course they were angry, but it was clearly mentioned that their hatred was not only natural, but was greatly influenced by the reincarnation spell itself, and thus by the underworld magic. That is, their hatred was objective, but it was intensified to such an extent that it ended up being irrational and evil. So you can say that although it was their free will, it was amplified by their influence of the underworld, which means that energy from the underworld can indeed make people evil, even if they don't want. This should definitely not be underestimated. Heck, that to even turn like a devil for a moment, even speaking the devil's language and literally using magic from the underworld, which could have another reason, but nonetheless, his rage and thus his anger and negative emotions made it possible for him to cross the bridge from the world of the living to the underworld, which indeed points to the connection between evil emotions and the underworld. The main theme of this arc, however, is that not all devils are evil just because they are a devil. So if Yami, for example, received a devil heart, that should not automatically mean that he changes his personality. If it still happens, then Lysita was wrong, and the devils are indeed evil from birth, and Liebe will then only be an exception, which I doubt because even Nacht's devils have changed from typical primitive thinking mid-ranking devils to very good-hearted persons, who themselves admitted that Nacht showed them something they did not know from the underworld before. This proves that devils are not evil just because they are devils, but that this is rather due to the influence of the underworld, especially the cruel hierarchy. But perhaps the underworld itself has some kind of influence on the devils, apart from the hierarchy. Perhaps it's due to one of the devil's powers or some mysterious energy that could then explain why Liebe was never affected by it, because of anti-magic. I mean, we can't ignore the fact that we have crystal clear evidence that underworld magic has shown that it can affect people negatively, and that negative emotions can also connect someone to the underworld. The bottom line is that with the information we have so far about the underworld and Yami's body, it is impossible to answer the question of whether Yami as a person could be influenced by his new devil body. It is possible, but it depends entirely on what really happens to him, if he is now connected to the underworld or has received his very own devil heart. All this will probably be revealed very soon, but just having a devil body won't make him evil, so don't worry. Before my partner continues with this Black Clover video, please take a moment and leave a like. With your support, we can create more and better Black Clover content for you. Thank you.
But just because Yami hasn't shown any changes in his personality or power yet, doesn't mean that that can't still happen in the future. It could mean that what is happening to his body now is not yet finished. So it is an ongoing process, or Yami himself has to use this power first so that the true meaning is revealed. Maybe even already in the next chapter. If what has happened to Yami is due to the fact that his heart has turned into that of a devil, as it is the case with Zenon, who made a pact with Beelzebub to receive a devil's heart in exchange for his soul, then Yami could be considered something like a devil hybrid. Maybe that's the meaning of being reborn with undying bodies. Maybe that's how the Dark Triad will return. After all, Yami would then be a human whose body was transformed into that of a devil. Can we really say that he's no longer human? And can we really say that he is nothing of a devil when he literally has a devil's body? Both feel wrong. The only thing that makes some sense is to say that Yami has the characteristics of both human and devil, since he's a human with the devil's body. So something like a human-devil hybrid, which could then give a whole new meaning to Grace's words when she said that his body is now like Liebe's. We can then interpret that Liebe's body is basically like a devil's body, but it also has something of a human. Then this would be a very good indication that our theory that Liebe might be a devil-human hybrid could be true. It all depends on what exactly Gray meant. Did she mean Liebe in particular, which indicates that Liebe is somehow different from all the other devils? Or did she mean devils in general and only mention Liebe because he is the only devil she knows? Which would then mean that there is nothing special about Liebe, so that Yami's body is now fully that of a normal devil, even if it doesn't look that way at the moment. You see, there are a lot of mysterious and unanswered questions surrounding Yami's new devil body. But one thing is for sure though, whether Yami is a full devil or a devil hybrid, he will eventually use this new power. Whether he's negatively affected by it or not, we can definitely assume that he he might be able to actually transform into a devil form. Although that's not strictly necessary since Gray has confirmed that his body is already that of a devil, so a transformation wouldn't be necessary. But we all know that Tabata loves to give his characters transformations, and due to the fact that Yami is one of the most popular characters, it's almost certain that he will get a cool devil form, just like all the other people who use devil magic. But what exactly is this magic power that Gray was talking about? Perhaps his body automatically changed through his connection with the Clifford tree, adapting to his own underworld magic, which may have resulted in his ability to generate more dark magic now than before in his simple human body. When we saw this graph showing who has the most magic in the Black Clover world, we saw the peasants at the bottom, closely followed by the commoners, then the nobles and royals at the top, only surpassed by the elves. But above the elves, we saw a high-ranking devil like Zagrid, which suggests that some devils have the ability to use more mana and thus more powerful magic. We know that Yami's magic comes from the underworld, which was confirmed by Morris, so it makes sense that his body is now better able to use dark magic than before, since his body now resembles that of a devil. This would then lead to the fact that Yami has not received any new magic. We know that dark magic is the slowest magic. Without his katana, Yami wasn't able to use dark magic effectively, but now that his body has changed, he may be able to use dark magic to its fullest extent, which then may open up many new possibilities, such as a devil form, which we mentioned earlier. However, if this magic has nothing to do with his own magic, but with an external magic now manifested in Yami's body, then it can only come from another devil. There's nothing such as underworld mana that Yami could have stored inside his body, so it can only come from another underworld source, which would then result in Yami having two magic abilities, just like the Dark Triad that made a pact with the devils. Unless the devil who gives Yami this new magic is a devil who has the same magic, for example Lucifugus, if Lucifugus really has dark magic. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Yami's new devil power. So that's it for today, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure to subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out!